Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchtime series where we chat about everything leadership, coaching and marketing in aim of adding value to people's lives, happening every Wednesday and Thursday on ebizradio.com. You can catch the Lunchtime series on all major podcast channels, and to help us grow the channel, please follow, like and share with everyone and everywhere, guys. In today's marketing and leadership segment, joining me as per usual, marketing and communications expert and co-host Craig Page Lee. How are you doing, Craig?
Kevin, yeah, good, thank you. Good to be chatting again, and welcome to the second last show of the year for us today.
Yeah, the second last. I wish that we were just talking about. I'm tired. I feel like, and I think the problem is this weekend we just had. It's just passed. We had such beautiful sunshine and on the Saturday and the Sunday, and we ended up, sitting next to the pool under the umbrella with sort of beers and cocktails and things, and just lazing in the sun, which I'm like, it's sort of a precursor of what I need to do more in the next couple of weeks. So I can't wait for that. But
Yeah,
are you excited to be going away? Are you going away this
yeah.
holiday?
I'm actually staying in town. My son's coming up from Cape Town. He's coming to visit me. Johannesburg is a good place during year ends, quieter than usual. And interestingly, a lot of the friends that I have are actually staying home this year as well. So definitely be spending more time catching up with mates. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think
Great. So I
economics
mean,
plays doesn't so say economics, I think, plays a big factor in that for many as well.
I think so. I think not to even sound like facetious about it or at all. Um, the fact of the matter, I think, is it's expensive and everything's expensive right now. Um, and it's just a case of going, well, do you really have to go away, or do you really want to spend the money? And I'm kind of
Yeah,
going,
yeah,
well, we're predominantly home based, and then we're probably going to just go and visit a friend in town, but not going on actual holiday. So
yeah.
just really just visiting and coming back. But Craig, what are the great key takeaway points from our conversation last week? Because I know we were chatting about the 7 trends changing the status quo, and tell us about that, about the future
Yeah,
of marketing.
absolutely. It was again another enlightening report that we came across, published by Pega, 7 trends changing the status quo, and it was from the Future of Marketing reports. And the key takeaway points are noted as follows. So, true personalization. When firstly, the point is it's getting even more personal, and the subset behind that thinking is true personalization means tailored content pieces and personalized messaging, but they must be contextually relevant and perfectly timed, or being supported by technologies that can interpret customer data better and faster. Trend number 2 is omni-channel, everything everywhere. And the subpoint here is consolidating strategies and customer touchpoints through AI-driven approaches will definitely help marketers deliver better omni-channel experiences, all adding more value to the buyer at the end of the day. Trend number 3, a remapped buyer's journey. And here, this is about the future won't be built around a single buyer's journey, but rather about a multitude of buyer journeys with a unique path for each buyer, Kevin. Trend number 4 is about great content is everything, something we've elaborated on frequently. Content should be a key component of every marketer's toolkit, with quality content needing to be added to help brands and companies support their customer journey or brand relationship. Trend number 5 is, are you ready for the next iteration of the internet, Web 3.0? This is really a realization that many marketers actually will use Web 3.0 technologies to captivate customers and meet them where they are in the metaverse, while others will actually just use it to augment their existing strategies with more exciting and richer content experiences. Trend number 6 is about owning your ESG messaging. In the future, marketers won't just be working in their company's ESG reports, they'll actually be integrating ESG, diversity, and corporate social responsibility messaging throughout their entire marketing programs. And finally, trend number 7 it's time for a skills shift. And this is really that the skills of the organization needed for success is about cultivating new capacities, since a broader scope of skills will be called for in most marketing roles in the future, Kevin. And those are the key takeaway points from last week.
Fantastic, guys. If you want to go check that out, you can check it out on the Lunchtime series on YouTube and all major podcast channels right now. Craig, so what are we going to be sharing with our listeners for today?
Kevin, yeah, I came across a report that really got me thinking about how well marketers really know Gen Z, especially as we covered some of the marketing trends and how to challenge the status quo last week. And you know, if any of that conversation would have bearing, it would be on today's topic. And what's interesting is I actually came across another podcast last night by two really well-respected South Africans that I know from the industry, and they picked up on the topic of Gen Z as well. So obviously a burning issue for brands and marketers to understand this particular generation. But the report is titled Generation Z, and it's GWI's generation report on the latest trends amongst Gen Z. It was published earlier this year by GWI, and the report provides a number of key insights relating to Gen Z, the likes of getting to know where Gen Z are in their respective lives, what has changed since the first Gen Zs came of age, interesting points there, what actually matters most to Gen Z, what are Gen Z's preferred social media platforms, and how do they actually watch content, deep insights there, and finally, how do Gen Z actually discover new products out in the big wide world?
So, I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to hearing about this today because, I was just looking now that the Gen Zs were born between 1997 and 2012, right? And I remember I finished high school in 1998. So, I'm like, I feel like an old person talking about these youngsters.
Yeah, brilliant.
But I mean, I think it's an important topic of discussion because I think the Gen Z nation, the Gen Zs as a whole, and my daughter would fall smack bang in this, and your son, I think, smack bang into this category, where they're a certain type of person. The way that you appeal to this group of people is very different to just what we're used to, and how we like being marketed to. I think it's a whole very different ballgame.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. So to that point, I just want to first look at some definition and context to what Gen Z is and what are the typical characteristics that actually describe this population segment. So according to Wikipedia, Generation Z, or more commonly known as Gen Z for short, colloquially known as Zoomers, is the demographic cohort succeeding millennials and preceding Generation Alpha. Researchers and popular media use in the mid to late 1990s as stating that the birth years and the early 2010s as the ending birth years. So you spoke about 1997 to 2012. Obviously, your daughters and then my son was 2 years prior to 97, but he definitely fits so many of these characteristics, Kevin. It's actually quite unreal. And what InsiderIntelligence.com tells us is that Gen Z will soon become the largest cohort of consumers, and brands who want a piece of this opportunity will really need to understand their tendencies and, most importantly, their digital expectations. This generation has been raised on the internet and social media, with some of the oldest finishing college by 2020, entering the workforce in the last year or two. But in closing on this point, Kevin, ranging between 10 to 25 years old, Gen Z is the youngest, most ethically diverse and largest generation in American history, comprising some 27% of the US population. And that's quite an alarming statistic. But to reiterate, this generation grew up with technology, with the internet, and with social media, which sometimes causes them to be stereotyped as tech addicted, antisocial, or social justice warriors.
Craig, I think if we look at the American election that's currently happened, just the midterm elections, I think this group have been quite the swing vote that has really moved the needle towards the Democratic Party, because I sometimes follow some of the news around, what the Americans are doing, and for them it's a big deal for them to see that young people, and I think the whole abortion act that has been changed in America, this generation that now have the ability to vote have really gone and said, no, hang on, that's not okay. I don't want you to take away my rights. And just recently we saw that the gay rights in America has also been confirmed to have been passed by the Senate. So I think this as you say, that this specific segment of the market, of the population, is really impacting the world in a big way. And in coming years, they're going to be the decision makers to a large degree. So,
absolutely, Kevin, and yeah, and I love the point you picked up on. But so to add, further validation to the likes of abortion and LGBTQ+ rights is obviously the whole issue around diversity, equity, inclusion, and we know that there are many states that actually wanted to rescind many of the rights that actually enable that to become a reality for folk across the USA. So definitely the swing vote was I'm sure in many instances influenced by some of those in the Gen Z space, Kevin.
And just one more to add to that is they're the ones that are leading the conversation around climate change. They are the segment and group of the population at the moment going, no, you guys are making really bad decisions about the place we're supposed to live in. And they're the ones in uprise. I look at the uprise that they've had in Iran with the against that social,
the wearing of the hijab. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And if you look at the age group, they fit smack bang into this generation, right? And that are kind of going, no, it's not okay. We're not okay with the decisions you're making on this. So it's a fantastic conversation to have, and I think the more we know about them and the more we understand them, the better we educating ourselves on what the future will look like, I think.
Absolutely, Kevin. No doubt about that.
Apart from the points we've just noted, Craig, what are some of the specific characteristics you can share about the Gen Zs?
Yeah, Kevin, the report actually notes a couple of really important points. Yeah, I referenced the 5 sort of key highlight pieces as we started the conversation, but I just want to quote directly from the report with the following 2 paragraphs here. So with the oldest Gen Z now approaching their mid-20s, they're becoming acquainted with employment, home ownership, marriage, and even parenthood. This opens up new opportunities for brands whose products and services are being discovered by this generation for the first time. Automotive and finance being just 2 examples. This is a generation with a lot on their plate. Many are still reeling from the impact of COVID-19, while climate change is certain to weigh heavily on their lifestyle choices for years to come. Gen Z have arrived at a time of unprecedented change, forcing brands to ditch outdated perceptions that Gen Z are anything like millennials and adapt new strategies that enable them to successfully engage with this generation. And just really, it absolutely defines the fundamental difference of this generation to any other preceding generations, Kevin. And on that point, let's just have a look at some of the statistics, at least fixer. There's really 4 key points in the chart that looks at the percentage of Gen Z who are the following. 79% were reported as being single in 2021, with 78 being so at least in 2020 versus 78 in 2021. 54% were reported as being students in 2020, with 51% being so in 2021. And that makes me think that there's more of a shift now coming out of being students into the workplace. 37% were reported as being full or part-time or self-employed in 2020, with 38 being so in 2021. There's already that proof point that we're seeing more going into the workplace. 10% were reported as being married or parents in 2020, with 11% being so in 2021.
Great. Interestingly, the self-employed and part-time and fully employed falls under that 37% as well. And yes. I think that's more now than ever before. We've seen an uprise and an instinctive, I just look at the internet marketers and the influencers and the YouTube famous people. They're making money in ways that we didn't knew existed, 20 years ago.
It would be really well. Yeah, I like that you come back to that point, because it would be really interesting to see the percentage of a full or part-time or self-employed over that 2-year period for the likes of millennials. And as Alpha gets to the same age group as this evaluation has been done, where Generation Alpha would be sitting as a percentage of that, maybe higher, maybe lower in the basis that, AI really is going to create more jobs that aren't in existence now, and the adaptation of future thinkers in Generation Alpha fitting into those new jobs. Who knows? It'd be really interesting to see where that takes us, though.
But I think also just one more point on that is that we already know that the millennials, and looking at the Gen Zs, they're already prescribing how they want to work and how they want to live, and if their work life doesn't fit into their lives, and they have more of a balanced way and approach to it, and I think the Gen Zs are just going to push that agenda even further.
Yes.
If we look at the whole shift that they're having about moving the work week from 5 days to 4 days in certain companies in certain countries, I think all of these sectors of the population are really influencing those decisions. So I think the future looks bright, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just on that workforce topic, obviously, they are the ones who are making decisions around which companies to work for, because those companies align with their values, not them aligning with the respective companies' values. And another important point there. But in addition to those points, Kevin, probably one of the most important themes that actually stood out for me is that Gen Z has an insatiable curiosity for the world around them. And this being emphasized by the fact that they're actually the first generation to be born post-internet, where their attitudes and values being largely reflective in different individuals, in different countries, and even in time periods. And coming out of that, the tendency is actually to agree with statements like, I want to explore the world, or I'm interested in other cultures and countries. And there's the proof point that they really are fundamentally different in their approach and thinking to universal acceptance and understanding, Kevin. But asking what helps them best identify with other people, things like humor, interests, and actual life experiences were all important. Most startling, however, is that more Gen Zers said that they identify with people their own age versus those that actually spoke their own language. So again, that's a great cross-cultural acceptance. I really like that. Some of the other stats on the generation. Percentage of Gen Z who agree with the following statement, and this is about their curiosity around the world. 63% are really hooked into learning new skills that are important to them. 57% are open-minded. 55% like to explore the world. 49% are interested in culture or countries. 46% would actually like to know what's going on in the world, and 39% actually want to be the first to try new things. So there's really great opportunity for brands that their top 10 interests, the percentage of Gen Z are interested in the following: 61% are interested in music, 53% in food and drink, 51% film and cinema, 50% cooking, 49% technology, 48% travel, 47% gaming, still quite high, 44% health, food and drinks, 41% playing sports, and 41% science. So some really interesting stats out there, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that learning a new skill is important to me. I think that at
Yes.
63% is is amazing, and that's what we need. That's what we need for the future of the world is the ability to, or just the keen interest to want to learn something that's new to you, and it could potentially be an actual skill. Because if we look at what Elon's doing with Twitter, if we look at even his space programs and all the people speaking about space programs, and there are going to be new skills needed. So the fact that they have a keen interest, and that is one of the highest that they have here, I think that's really, and simply being open-minded. The fact that speaking another language is not important, but rather the fact that we're of the same age and we like hanging out, even though you're different than me. That in
And
itself speaks
yeah,
volumes.
to add to that then, Kevin, the fact that science is in the top 10 interests of Gen Z as well.
Yeah.
You start looking at science as opportunities for new careers, new skills being important. You start bringing those components together. It's fascinating. Technology and science way above 40%, and both in the top 10. So that's really great.
So, Craig, what can you tell us about the social media habits?
Yeah, as we'd expect, Kevin, this generation is right into the opportunity around TikTok. That said, both Instagram is still both Gen Z's most used and favorite social media platform. And what was really interesting to see is because obviously a lot of research in these spaces is done around China. There's a significantly high percentage of users outside of China that actually engage via the ByteDance app, which has risen 47% since Q2 2020. So we're seeing Gen Z, really applying their user behavior to technologies and platforms that aren't necessarily American based. The success of TikTok is often associated with increased use during COVID lockdown, but it's also noting that Gen Z were actually the first dominant audience on TikTok, Kevin. Instagram still leads when it comes to sort of broader range of users performing a number of different actions, but Gen Z is definitely more likely to use TikTok to actually search for funny content. And this definitely adds credence to the importance of the success of short form video format. It's here with us, and more and more brands are adopting this particular approach. What's interesting to see here is Gen Z's monthly use of Telegram Messenger outside of China has also grown 11% since Q4 2020. And some of this growth obviously can be attributed to new users migrating to the Telegram Messenger platform on the back of Meta's Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp services collapsing at times, and really that particular group being under enormous pressure financially as well. And Mark Zuckerberg really under scrutiny of from many avenues. But the end-to-end encryption messaging platforms is really what resonates with Gen Z, as they've adopted much higher levels of privacy conscious approach to social media. This again being validated by the fact that over 30% of users in the US actually expect social media companies should be doing more to protect user data. And really this is where the power gets into the hands of users, pushing away from brands that don't give them that sense of comfort and adherence to those new stringent rules. But probably the most important factor relating to Gen Z's use of social media, Kevin, is that authenticity is key. And a great GWI Zeitgeist survey that took place in September 2021 noted that 41% of Gen Z social media users in 7 markets most wanted to see content that's relatable to their situation. So it's that authenticity that can bring some value to helping me serve my needs and bring value to my life. And a point to note for brands here is that any long-term partnership with influencers really needs to be reviewed in relation to the content that they post and how it actually resonates with Gen Z's image. They want to see themselves, to quote, in advertising and feel as though brands are being genuine when they align with select individuals, not finding themselves confronted with unrealistic depictions and filtered images. So again, tell it as it is, show us as we are, tell the truth, and we'll be there to support you. And yeah, let's have a look at some of the other stats reported on what matters to Gen Z in social media, Kevin. So here we see, I want to see the following from people on social. 58% want to see funny, light-hearted content. 52% would like to see content they find inspirational. 51% is about sharing information that actually helps people. 48% is about content that looks good. 41% want content that's relatable to their respective situation, again, tying into the authenticity. 40% want reviews, options on products that they've used, at least opinions, I should say. 36% are content about their life. 36% is about taking a stance on important issues, and 21% is content that doesn't use image filters. Again, it's about brutal reality, truthfulness, information that helps add value to their lives or to other people's lives, and just being about authentic and real during the process. So some really wonderful expectations, and brands really need to be very cognizant of that, otherwise they're going to lose out in opportunities engaging with this particular generation.
Well, Craig, I don't know if you've seen the debacle around Balenciaga, the brand.
Gosh, yes.
And and this age group are quite specifically going and trolling Balenciaga as a brand right now. And I mean, you could just go look at TikTok, and that's just one platform that they're doing it on. So the fact that, you're looking at the sharing information that helps people and content that I find inspirational, I think a lot of them are stepping into that space, pointing out things about things that are wrong in the world.
Yes.
And they're actually saying, this stuff is not okay. This should not be happening. And this group of people are really laying it on thick, So I don't know how Balenciaga is going to come out on the other side of this, because what they've done is really quite atrocious. And they're quite synonymous with some very, very creepy stuff. And if you go, into it and a little bit deeper into all of the stuff, even in the visual representation of their brand in the previous campaign that they've just launched, these guys they're kind of going, that's not okay. And I think that's what's really important about these stats that I'm seeing here is, content that I want that's inspirational, sharing information that helps people, content that looks good, all of that is. They're coming from a bit of a different mindset and looking at the world and going, I'm not okay with the world, and what is wrong with the world needs to be pointed out, and people need to start, fixing it. I think that's what I love about it.
Yeah, absolutely. More than a third, 36% of Gen Z, important on taking a stance on important issues in the world.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So yeah. They're going to be the change makers for the universe, hopefully.
Absolutely, I hope so. As we close the show, Craig, what can you share with our listeners as key takeaways today? Because I think the Gen Zers are on their way. They're mighty.
We could probably have 3 shows just on Gen Z, but to that point, I think anybody who really wants to get to understand this particular generation in a lot more detail really should be reading the GWI report. It's a fascinating report. There's some really great insights in there, and we've just skimmed over the surface. But to wrap up the show today, I want to directly reference the key insights section of the GWI Gen Z report, which forms us of the following, Kevin. So firstly, you picked up on this in the early intro to the conversation, is climate change is their number one long-term concern. Not only that, but their optimism for the future of the environment is slipping, and that's quite sad to get to understand. They have shortcomings when it comes to being eco-friendly, but brands need to show eco-consciousness where possible if they're going to establish a rapport with Gen Z. And they're quite brutal in this regard, as being totally dismissive to brands where that trust isn't in place and the authenticity around the brand isn't there either. Online TV is now their preferred way to watch content. Q3 2021 actually represented the first time that Gen Z were watching more online TV than broadcast TV. And again, there's no coming back from that. The world of streaming TV is fundamentally changing on a daily basis, and next generation is probably going to be substantially higher in watching online TV versus broadcast. YouTube and Twitch are really in line of having some serious competition as more and more online channels and platforms come about and growing to become the channels of choice worldwide. Gen Z have a truly global focus, as we've just spoken about, really encouraging. They're interested in exploring the world and trying new things. This represents real opportunities for brand to sell in foreign content, sell in foreign products, and align in an international way with this generation. Gen Z also makes a range of different life choices. Plant-based diets, we've seen a huge growth in veganism, vegetarianism, and teetotalism as well, a reduction in the number of Gen Zs actually drinking alcohol. They're very much around a hustle culture as well. And that this, again, creates and presents enormous opportunity for brands to engage with them on the back of these different lifestyle choices, Kevin. TikTok absolutely continues to gain ground. Gaming is just as big as one would expect it to be with Generation Z. Instagram is still their most used and favorite social media platform. That'll probably change with TikTok now actually making some serious inroads into their life and the rapid growth around uptake of TikTok. But Gen Z engagement on ByteDance app outside of China has risen, as I mentioned earlier as well. Gaming, 90% of Gen Zers say they play games on any device, more than any other generation, which makes gaming an integral part of their culture, but obviously an integral part of how brands find an opportunity to connect with Gen Z through gaming, through brand placement in games. Brands do, however, need to take advantage of ongoing developments in the space and looking for new opportunities in gaming if they are going to appear genuine and appeal to this generation. And the last point here, Kevin, this time actually from McKinsey, and it supports the point around the planet, is that 88% of Gen Z do not trust eco-friendly claims. It was really interesting finding for me here, where Gen Z cares the most about the planet than any other generation, and as such, one would expect this generation to be the most on guard around inconsistency in messaging and statements. And in 2021, the survey stated that 88% of American Gen Zers said they don't trust brands' environmental, social, and governance claims, Kevin. And that's quite an alarming statement, that Gen Zers can be quick to cancel out their business when they experience in brands that they see as not being sincere or untruthful in their messaging. And when you see the potential of earning capacity moving into the future, that's a big risk for brands. And this has obviously resulted in many brands veering away from sustainable labels altogether, which isn't necessarily the right approach. And this is just to avoid the kickbacks as they still grapple with trying to work out their own eco-friendly credentials and futures there, Kevin. And those are the key highlights from today's conversation.
Craig, listening to that, I think, the cancel culture, there's the word cancel culture, as a topic. Yes. That it's probably stems from a lot of Gen Zers that are actually kind of looking at the world, because they've grown up in a time where they've had access to information far quicker than when we were their age, and they've sort of looked at the world and they've looked at what they're learning on social media. And it's that quick, oh, well, I'll just block you, I'll just delete you kind of sort of reference that they have to disliking something. But I also think it's also holding people far more responsible and accountable, right? Yes, we've grown up far more. When we were youngsters, there were far much more things going on that we weren't aware of, and purely based on the fact that we didn't have something like well, I'll block you, or I'll just cancel this subscription. But I think the Gen Zers, they have that ability, and I think it makes you more responsible. I mean, if you look at Kanye West, how with a few anti-Semite kind of comments he made, and sort of saying things that he wasn't supposed to say, he got cancelled really quickly. And I think, it speaks to this generation that kind of look up to people and put people, because essentially they put you at that pedestal, or on that pedestal, as quickly as they put you there, they'll take you down.
Very much
and
so.
I think that comes with the responsibility of having the fame, I think. And
What I really appreciate about this generation is they're past the point of accepting prescription. People have always spoken to you. They're at a point of being able to go and formulate their own ideas, bring value back to the conversation, and actually make it a dialogue as opposed to prescribed instruction on what to do, how to do it, and when and where to do it as well. And I really appreciate that immensely about this generation.
Absolutely. Guys, if you want to catch us again, we're going to have our very last show next week. Craig, I mean, how many have we got now? We've got up to...
So next week will be 92. And 10 weeks into next year, we'll probably hit about the middle of March when we should see our 100th show, Kevin.
Fantastic. And then March is my birthday, so it's a perfect month to do it in as well.
There we go. Brilliant.
Fantastic. Craig, thank you for a fantastic show. I've learned so much more about the Gen Zers than I ever thought I would have learned, but interesting. And I'm definitely going to keep this on my radar, because I think they are having some really good impact into the world. And
absolutely. Fascinating generation, and wonderful. Get the report. Also, I'll actually send it to you, and just spend some time going through the report. It's a great report and some really, really great insights there.
Fantastic. Craig, have a great day. I'll chat to you soon.
Thank you. Look forward to next week. Thanks, Kevin.
Cheers. Ciao. Bye.